Welcome back to Face the State. I'm Ariana Bennett. Thank you for joining us. Well, it seems the good news just keeps on coming from Northern Nevada's rapidly growing economy, from the unemployment rate dropping to home values rising. But are wages keeping pace with all that growth? Nevada's chief economist, Bill Anderson, is here to talk about that. Bill, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so in general terms, how healthy would you say Nevada's economy is right now?
I think we're very healthy. We had a big hole to dig out of after the recession, and as 2016 came to a close, we regained all of those recessionary losses. So right now, employment's at a record high, including small business employment. Our job growth is essentially fourth in the nation. We're seeing initial claims for unemployment insurance go down. So all in all, as I look at the economy, it's been a long road, but after about 5 or 6 years of continuous recovery, we've finally made our way all the way back.
Yeah, it's really great news. Are there still any areas of concern for you, though?
Well, as the recovery unfolded, there were two areas of concern, and one is showing signs of taking care of itself. That has to do with wage growth. It took a while for wages to start growing, but now we're starting to see signs that they are. The other area of concern I have is a technical issue, what we call the labor force participation rate. It's the extent to which residents are participating in the workforce, either as employees or actively searching for work. We haven't seen that rebound, and this isn't a Nevada issue, it's a national issue. We haven't seen that rebound to the same extent that we typically do following recession, so we're keeping an eye on that.
What contributes to that number, the labor force participation rate?
Well, basically what it's designed to do is to measure the extent to which people are working in or participating in the labor market. So there's a number of things going on. Some folks might have got discouraged during the recession, thinking that there were no jobs out there for them. They gave up their search for work. After a while, you'd like to see them re-enter the labor market. There's also retirement that's impacting that. As folks, baby boomers, reach retirement age, they're going to drop out of the workforce. So we're seeing a number of different trends impacting that.
Yeah, so I imagine even just the baby boomer number is going to affect it in a big way because it's such a big population. Is that going to wreak havoc on the economy overall?
Well, I think what it's highlighting is the fact that you have to focus not only on economic development, but combined with economic development, workforce development. You have to make sure that there's an adequate workforce that will satisfy the needs of a growing business community.
Right, that kind of brings me to my next point, and that's Nevada's unemployment rate, which is extremely low, 4.7% in May. But what's really striking to me was the 3.9% in the Reno-Sparks area. How low can that number go and stay in a healthy place?
Well, you're always going to have some unemployment. You're always going to have some people that are shifting from one job to another. You're always going to have people re-entering the labor market, and it might take them a while to find a job. For instance, graduating students, flood the labor market in the summertime months, and it takes them a while to find the job. But our unemployment rate prior to the recession peaked, or bottomed out, I should say, in the high 3% range. We got just below 4%. So we're starting to approach that now. And we'll be keeping an eye on that. That's kind of our next big milestone to reach. We were hit very hard by the recession. Our jobless rate was almost 4.5 points higher than in the nation as a whole. Now we're almost even with the nation. So I'll be watching as upcoming months unfold to see if we can catch up with them.
Yeah. Now we're seeing, what's contributing to this obviously is a huge influx of jobs and job creation, which is fantastic. And that's exactly what we needed to see after the recession to recover. But what I think has been interesting is that as we've seen all these jobs come in, we haven't really seen wages keep pace. So what's the discrepancy?
Well, I think early on in the recession, early on in the recovery, it was kind of a buyer's market. Employers didn't really have to offer very attractive wage packages to get the unemployed back to work. But now that the labor market is getting tighter, we're starting to see wages grow. In fact, in 2016, wages here in Nevada grew by about 3%. That is actually higher than the rate of inflation, so that translates into an increase in real purchasing power. So we're starting, just by the behavior of the market, the labor market, we're starting to see that wage problem more or less take care of itself.
And do you anticipate that trend will continue, wages will continue to grow?
Given the fact that we're seeing more diversified growth, yes, we're seeing contributions from the state's historical drivers, that being leisure and hospitality and construction, but we're also seeing solid job growth in relatively high wage industries like business services, healthcare, things of that nature. So I really expect that we'll continue to see wage growth, right around in the low to mid single digits.
Do we still have a ways to go before wages are at a place where, the average employee is making enough to, basically a living wage, to live here comfortably?
Well, that's not something that takes care of itself overnight. I mean, it's a long process, just like changing the makeup of the economy, going from one based solely on construction and leisure and hospitality to an economy that's more broad-based. That takes a while. So there's certainly room for wages to grow further.
Okay. Now, part of the issue we see is that housing prices have gone up so much because of a shortage in available housing that it's way outpacing what people are actually making. I think the median home price is a good $20,000-$30,000 more than what the median income can afford, or even more than that. I can't remember the exact numbers. So do you see that being a problem, or do you see it righting itself pretty quickly?
Well, I don't know if it will right itself quickly, but I think over time it will take care of itself. Most importantly, we're not seeing the kind of bubble that we saw prior to the recession. Prior to the recession, I mean, things just got overheated. It was unsustainable. That's why the kind of growth that we're seeing now, I think, is more conductive to long-term growth. We'll be better able to handle the booms and the busts. But prior to the recession, the example I like to use is our construction workers were building houses for construction workers. And that's the kind of trend that's just simply not sustainable over time.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an issue in terms of supply that hopefully that will boost itself, and then we won't see as big of a discrepancy, for sure. Anything else that we should be watching? What are you paying close attention to right now?
Well, last year we regained all of our jobs lost during the recession. We lost about 186,000 jobs during the recession. We finally regained all of those jobs. We've started to see some pretty significant declines in the unemployment rate. In fact, through the first 5 months of this year, our decline in our unemployment rate was the second strongest in the nation, trailing only West Virginia. So that's what I'm keeping my eye on, is that unemployment rate. What I'd like to see in the months ahead is we basically catch up with the nation. As I said, we're about 4.5 points higher than the nation at the height of the recession. Now we're just 0.4 of a point higher. So with a little bit of luck, we'll see our unemployment rate go down to the national average.
Now, is the national average a good place? Like nationally, is the economy doing well?
Nationally, the economy is growing. And in fact, that's what we learned in the last, one of the things we learned in the last recession is that Nevada isn't recession proof. We're very much impacted by what takes place nationally and internationally as well. So for us to continue growing, I think it's imperative that the national and world economies can remain relatively healthy.
Yeah, it's good news in general. So would you say that for an employee who's maybe been dealing with stagnant wages in their job for however long, now is a good chance for them to be able to say, look, now's the time for me to get a raise. If we're getting raises across the board, is now the time to ask?
Well, the best advice I would give workers today is to diversify their skill base. Required skills are constantly evolving. So you have to keep on top of things. If you have the skills that are in demand by employers, more times than not, you're going to be able to increase your income and see your wages grow.
And what skills are big in particular right now?
There are a number of them out there right now. We hear a lot of talk about soft skills, the ability to just show up at work on time and dressed appropriately, things of that nature. But now we're starting to see more and more demand for the STEM type jobs. That's the buzzword right now, where you have skills in such areas as math and computer programming, things of that nature. So those are as our economy evolves, our necessary skill base will have to evolve as well.
Okay, well, we've got about 30 seconds left. Is there anything else you would want people to know, anything you want to add?
Well, I think looking forward, we can see more of the same. Our forecast right now calls for about 40,000 new jobs a year in the state as a whole. That translates into about 3% growth. That's sustainable. The 6% growth we were seeing prior to the recession wasn't sustainable.
All right, Bill, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I sure appreciate it. Well, that is it for this episode of Face the State. But for more information or to see past episodes, just head to our website. That's ktvn.com. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next week.